So one of my biggest surprises of 2018 was a little movie called A Simple Favor. That film starred Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. Paul Feig was in the director's chair, and that movie just absolutely surprised the living hell out of me. So when they announced that they were going to be making a sequel to this movie, I was really excited because I really enjoyed that first film for what it was. It had a really nice twist to it, but my excitement for it was a little bit tempered when they announced that it was going straight to streaming because that is usually a big red flag. But I was lucky enough to check it out in theaters early, and so this movie is kind of taking place a couple of years after the first film. You have Anna Kendrick coming back as Stephanie Smothers, who is a big time writer, writing about what happened in the first film. That is when Blake Lively's Emily comes back to ask Stephanie for another simple favor, and that is to go to Capri to be her bridesmaid at her extravagant wedding to a rich Italian businessman, and then a murder happened. Now, where the first film kind of blended three different genres together, you had comedy, you had murder mystery, you had drama in there. It all blended very well, and I thought the twist for that movie was great. It came out of nowhere, it really surprised me. So going into this movie, I wasn't really sure if we were going to be blending those three genres together again because I didn't watch any trailers for this movie. And where the first film kind of blended three different genres together, Another Simple Favor just focuses more on the comedy and the murder mystery of it all. And for the most part, I thought this movie really worked. When it comes down to comedy, I think Paul Feig is one of those rare directors who is able to handle the comedy pretty well. He directed Bridesmaids, The Heat, Spy, and I thought those movies were great. He directed Jackpot that came out last year, which really wasn't the best, but I thought it had some moments in there. In this movie, he is just focusing on the comedy, and I think the comedy in this movie, for the most part, really does hit. There are a lot of laugh out loud moments that I really enjoyed. Some of the comedy here and there didn't really land for me, but 7 out of 10 times the comedy was landing for me, and Anna Kendrick just takes this role and just rolls with it. She knows exactly what kind of movie she's in, and the chemistry that she has with Blake Lively, where she doesn't know if Emily is lying, if prison actually changed her to be a really nice person, or if there's something under the surface. Anna Kendrick is basically the star of this movie, with Blake Lively kind of being in the background and just being there for her wedding. And so it's really mostly focused on Anna Kendrick and her trying to figure out if she's able to trust Emily again, to see if she's actually a changed person or what's actually going on, why she's being invited to this wedding. I thought for the most part, Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick still had a wonderful chemistry, even though halfway through the film, whenever Emily was being a little bit snotty, I wasn't sure if it was just Blake Lively on set just being herself or if it was her acting. Taking the controversy aside, these two are great in the roles that they are given, and Anna Kendrick absolutely leads this movie. The murder mystery aspect of this movie fairly predictable. You know exactly what's going on and you know exactly what the ending is going to be. And so I kind of wish the who done it aspect murder mystery of this movie was a little bit more interesting and a little bit more fascinating because while I was finger pointing at people to see who could it be, would it be him, would it be her, I was trying to figure out the who done it aspect of this movie, and it worked to a certain point because once we get to the reveal of this movie, I feel like that is where this movie kind of screeched to a halt. This movie has a wonderful pace from beginning to, I'd say, the hour and a half mark. This movie is 2 hours and it does feel longer than it does, and that's mostly towards the end of the film once we get to the reveal. For the first two acts of this movie, I thought the pacing was great, the comedy was hitting, and I was really interested to see where this movie was going. And Paul Feig is still great behind the camera. I thought he had some wonderful directions, and I thought there were some interesting twists and turns in this movie that worked for me, and most of them did not. And that is the biggest issue that I have with this movie because when it comes down to the reveal, you kind of want to figure out who's behind it all and wanting to see why they did it. Once a certain person walks into the room, that is when I was able to figure out who the killer in this movie was, but I was not able to figure out the motivation. And once we figure out the motivation and the reveal of it all, that is where this movie just screeches to a halt. It just didn't work because it just felt like they were trying to do something clever and something unique and just throw a little bit of a curveball at you, but it was very familiar to me because I had already seen this reveal before. And so once we get to the reveal and what's actually going on, the motivation behind it all, that is where this movie just screeches to a halt and it just loses its pace because it is trying to juggle a couple of things, and it felt like it was trying to handhold the audience by explaining every little thing, and it didn't need that. If I was not enjoying this movie up to that point, then once we got to the reveal, I would have probably despised this movie. It does some of the twists and turns great, but it just doesn't stick the landing. And once we get into the third act, the pacing of this movie just slows down so much to the point where I just felt tired, to the point where I just felt like I just wanted to sleep. And so for the first two acts of this movie, I thought it was enjoyable. The comedy was hitting, the murder mystery aspect of this movie was really intriguing. I was curious to see the direction it was going in, and once we took that direction, it just absolutely lost me, and it almost ruined the entire film as a whole for me. It just felt like they were throwing some shock value in just for the fun of it. And so overall, while this movie is not as great as that first film, it has its moments of issues. I think everybody does a great job with the material that they're given. The comedy hit when it needed to hit. Sometimes it didn't work. And towards the last half of this movie that's when the comedy really didn't work. But once we get into the third act, it just screeches to the halt and it just almost ruins the movie for me. But overall, this is a movie that deserves to be seen on streaming because once we get to the reveal, you can just fast forward to the last 10 minutes and I think you'll have a better time with this movie. But overall, this is just a enjoyable movie. It has its moments of charms, it has its moments of mystery. I just wish the whole package came together as a whole and it stuck the landing like the first film. But those are my thoughts on Another Simple Favor. Let me know down in the comments if you check it out. If you enjoy the first film, let me know what you think of it. And until next time, we'll catch you guys soon.